Thanks, Senator Kennedy. The meeting has 7 items on the agenda today, 6 nominations, 1 piece of legislation. That legislation, S. 1787, the State Antitrust Enforcement Venue Act of 2021, sponsored by Senators Lee and Klobuchar, who will arrive shortly, I'm certain, and co-sponsored by Senators Leahy, Blumenthal, and Hawley, has been listed for the first time, and according to committee precedent, will be held over. We have 6 nominees who are ready for a vote today. First, we'll be considering the nomination to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals of Myrna Perez. She is an experienced litigator who has dedicated her career to defending the right to vote, a very fundamental right in America. She has demonstrated a commitment to protecting, as the late Representative John Lewis put it, our precious, almost sacred right to vote. It is fitting, then, that this committee will advance Ms. Perez's nomination so close to the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, which is tomorrow. Her resume is outstanding, receiving degrees from Yale, Harvard, and Columbia. She clerked on the U.S. District Court for the District of Pennsylvania and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Practicing law, she has experience in long-running complex civil litigation and in proceedings for preliminary relief. She's given great insight into the real-world impact of judicial decision-making. Unfortunately, she has been the subject of personal attacks since she has been nominated. I want to address those directly. Some have implied that Ms. Perez acted inappropriately by continuing to do her work as a voting rights advocate while under consideration as a judicial nominee. In fact, the judicial canons apply only to nominees. Ms. Perez could not have violated these canons prior to being nominated. Ms. Perez continuing to do her work as an advocate, even while she was under consideration for nomination, is consistent with what we've seen from previous nominees. For example, now Eastern District of Missouri Judge Sarah Pitlik also worked for advocacy organizations, held over a dozen public appearances and interviews after she was in talks to be nominated. In addition, some of my colleagues have criticized Ms. Perez for her responses to questions on judicial philosophy. Let's be clear, we should not require every judicial nominee coming before this committee to pledge fidelity to originalism, whatever that is. This new litmus test is being applied very selectively. Dozens of President Trump's nominees did not label themselves originalist or didn't specify whether they followed any specific judicial philosophy. My colleagues seem to accept that answer at that time. Only now do they expect a different answer. Finally, some of my colleagues have suggested it was inappropriate that Ms. Perez stated that she believes Brown versus Board was correctly decided, but refused to give similar responses about other cases that involve issues that are before or may come before her as a judge. In fact, Ms. Perez's answer was perfectly in line with what dozens of President Trump's nominees stated at their hearings, including now Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. These baseless attacks on Ms. Perez are disappointing. I understand that some of my colleagues do not like the fact that she's dedicated her legal career to issues like voting rights, but no reasonable person could argue that she doesn't understand the difference between being an advocate and a judge. Let me read her quote to this committee. By accepting this nomination, I am pledging to this body, to the American public, before my God, that I would faithfully discharge my duties under the Constitution, which require me to put aside any personal policy viewpoint I have and examine what the matter is before me and apply precedent. What can we reasonably expect beyond that from any nominee? Ms. Perez is independent-minded, highly qualified, and has a great background, which will serve her well in the Second Circuit. I certainly do support her. We're also voting today on Gia Cobb's nomination to the D.C. District Court for the District of Columbia. 15 years of practice, trying more than 30 cases to verdict in civil and criminal proceedings. She, in fact, her first 6 years was a public defender and then handled more than 200 cases in court almost every day. For the past 9 years, Ms. Cobb has worked at national civil rights law firms representing plaintiffs in fair housing, disability, and employment discrimination cases. The ABA has recognized her vast experience and unanimously rated her well qualified. Given that she's extensively practiced law from multiple angles, representing plaintiffs and defendants in civil and criminal cases, in public service and in private practice, I support her nomination as well. We'll likewise be considering Sarah Miriam Nomination to the District of Connecticut. Judge Miriam has served as U.S. Magistrate for over 6 years, presiding over hundreds of matters. The ABA has unanimously rated her well qualified. Prior to joining the federal bench, she served as Assistant Federal Defender, where she gained extensive experience in litigation. Her nomination has the support of not just defense attorneys, but prosecutors as well. The committee's received a letter of support from 26 former prosecutors, 3 former U.S. attorneys who were appointed by the presidents of both parties. They wrote that she's highly qualified and applies the law fairly and properly. Judge Miriam has the strong support of Senators Blumenthal and Murphy. I look forward to voting for her nomination. Also on the agenda is Judge Florence Pan, nominated to the District Court for the District of Columbia, spent her entire legal career in public service in the Justice and Treasury Departments, and then as Assistant U.S. Attorney for D.C. for 10 years. When President Obama nominated Judge Pan to sit on the D.C. Superior Court in 2009, the Senate confirmed her by voice vote. Since then, she's presided over 656 trials, civil and criminal. She was previously nominated by President Obama to the D.C. District Court in 2016, favorably reported out of this committee by a voice vote. However, Senator McConnell refused to allow a floor vote on her nomination at the end of the 114th Congress. The ABA rated her unanimously well qualified. She has the strong support of the D.C. Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton. She'll bring diversity to the D.C. District Bench as the first Asian American to serve on that court. We'll also be voting on Karen Williams' nomination to the District of New Jersey. Since 2009, she served as federal magistrate judge, handling thousands of cases, presiding over trials. Before her appointment, she spent nearly 2 decades in legal practice, developing expertise in municipal and labor law. Again, she's been rated unanimously well qualified by the American Bar Association, has the strong support of her state senators. Finally, voting on Matt Olson's nomination to serve as Assistant AG for the Justice Department's National Security Division. He spent more than 2 decades in government service, developed extensive knowledge in national security and intelligence. Having already served as Acting Assistant Attorney General for this division, Mr. Olson understands firsthand the vital role that the Justice Department plays in combating threats, foreign and domestic. Coupled with his service in the intelligence community, there's no doubt he has a keen awareness of the threats our nation faces. A number of my Republican colleagues have taken exception to Mr. Olson's remarks that he made as a private citizen, but the evidence is clear. Mr. Olson, who has served both Democratic and Republican administrations, has always put the nation's security ahead of partisanship. It's this commitment to keeping our nation safe that led scores of former Department of Justice and other national security officials to write letters of support. Among those supporting Mr. Olson are numerous Department of Justice officials appointed by President Bush, Michael Mukasey, and Michael Chertoff, former NSA Director General Keith Alexander, and former Director of National Intelligence Mike McConnell, and Saxby Chambliss, our former colleague who served as Vice Chair of the Intelligence Committee. This kind of bipartisan support speaks volumes. Now I turn to our ranking member, Senator Grassley.